Hi guys, this is the Vasily Kokler from the B-Dance, and we have a special guest today, Yahweh from New York, from New York Mutual, and we're going to talk. We're going to talk about different backgrounds, non-traditional backgrounds in finance. So usually the route is you go like get some finance degree or accounting, and you know exactly what you want to do. Well, what I'm especially attracted to is to non-traditional types and backgrounds, because I feel if we talk about cross-pollination in the bees, so bee goes to one flower, then she collects some pollen, and then she goes transfers some of the pollen to another flower. We talk about cross-pollination, and then we use the term cross-pollination of ideas. So I think the more your perspective you can get from different countries, backgrounds, the more helpful it is. So I'd like to ask you, Yahweh, about your background, especially you share with me about going to different countries like Ecuador, Thailand, Cambodia, Jamaica, and your military background in the Marines. How do you feel that shape you as a person, and especially help you to eventually, how did you like get into finance, and how do you feel it made you into a better consultant?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
So the Marine Corps side of it, I think that really added to my discipline approach. My discipline approach, my ability to just go in there and get it done. Sift through all the suffering that's involved with it, and being in other countries exposed me to multiculturalism. So I was able to assimilate in different cultures and learn them and actually be inspired by that. Always changing or developing really my perspective on life, and because coming from my background as a child, I was so ignorant. Like, right, when you get exposed to something new, you realize, wow, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, like limited perspective.
Limited perspective, exactly. And fast forward into my career in finance now, I see how I'm able to take from different ideas, pull from different ideas and apply them in this, because growing up, I never knew I would be in the military. I never knew I would be in finance. I never knew I would go to these different countries, and that gave me the understanding that I can go for all these different things. Like, I can actually go after my interests. When I got in the Marine Corps, when I started traveling, I realized, there was kind of limitless potential.
Yeah.
So I was able to go after my actual interests, and where I landed in finance, I'm like, man, I was studying it myself. I was just really self-educating myself and reading the books like Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett, Peter Lynch, all these guys. And I was at a point in my life where I wanted to figure out what would be my thing. What do I want to do for the rest of my life? And where can I create the biggest impact, and where can I impact my pockets at the same time? Yeah. And
that's usually a natural effect. If you really help people, you bring value. Yeah. I mean, the natural consequence, like you grow your revenues, because it's a natural consequence of you bringing value to people.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I found with finance. So I went on Google, tried to figure out how I can get in the financial industry, what would be my angle, and
and you mentioned to me that you were considering accounting, but why did you reconsider that?
Yeah, so I actually talked with my now fiance, and she has a really close friend, and that's in human resources, and looking at the different things that are in demand now. And one of those things are accounting information. It's always going to be, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, there's a way. I found CPA.
Yeah.
And there was a way, all you needed was your undergrad and then all these other courses.
And like 30 additional credits.
30, yeah,
beyond that,
exactly.
yeah.
So I'm like, okay, how would that work? Where would I go to get those credits? And then I'm really thinking like, okay, would I really want to do this for the rest of my life? So I'm on YouTube looking at people's experience as being a CPA, and it just didn't seem fun. Like I want to be able to, I like to get lost in what I'm doing.
Yeah, get in the state of flow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can accomplish that with things that, I think you can accomplish that with things that aren't interesting, but, or like so-called fun, but thinking about the CPA and taxes, I just didn't see a way for me to accomplish that. So I found, because I was already into investing, I'm like, I really love that, and I love to educate people on that within my, circle, sphere of influence.
You see, and you're so right that in accounting, like 80 to 90% of accountants work in traditional accounting, like bookkeeping and tax preparation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about a tax guy, you think about a guy who prepares taxes, who goes and like prepares those tax returns, and that gets pretty boring after a while. And I'm of the same opinion as you. That's why I went into non-traditional taxation, meaning into the really advisory and resolution space. Because I did have experience preparing taxes, it was helpful and useful, but I was bored out of my mind. So I knew I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. I want to go to truly advisory, to advise clients on how to save a lot of money, to really focus on tax strategies that they can produce a big impact. So we talk about impact here.
Yeah.
So you say then you figure out the investments were more appealing to you.
Yes,
right?
yes. And being that I'm not from that background, I don't have a finance degree. Mine is in international relations. I started trying to figure out how can I get into the finance industry, and I found the CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst, and man, I studied for that. I had a prep provider. It was way over my head. That stuff is like, it was way over my head, and so I fell short on the first level. My thought was, okay, I can pass the first level. There's 3 levels of the exam that you have to pass before you can become chartered, and you have to have 4 years in the industry.
Right.
So I'm like, I could pass this first level, and then use that as leverage to get in with a firm like Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan or whoever.
See, like, and if you're a CPA in Techie, they do give you a credit for the accounting portion of it.
Oh, do they?
So that's a little advantage there.
Okay, I do see people that have CPA.
I mean, it's just a by the way point. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I fell short of that, and I'm like, okay, I know I still need the 4 years experience. Let me find a way to still get in the door.
Yeah.
And funny enough, my fiance, we were both looking for work at the same time. She's in the healthcare industry.
Yeah.
And so a recruiter reached out to her, and who's in the finance industry, and said, try to recruit her, and I'm looking to get in the finance industry, so she just connected us.
Your wife is in HR, right?
No, my wife is in healthcare. So she's a project manager.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But she had a friend in HR.
Exactly. That kind of consulted us and on which professions in the finance industry are in demand.
Yeah. So somebody was trying to recruit your wife into finance.
Yeah. And then it just worked out. It was like a godsend, really. Yeah. Yeah,
and she came to you like, hey Yahweh, I don't want to. Do you want to pick this up?
Yeah. Well, she said, oh, why don't you look into it? And because at first I won't name the company. Yeah. At first I was hesitant. Because it didn't seem like the same kind of work that I wanted to do. It was more client facing. Yeah. And I didn't imagine myself in that kind of role. And with interviewing, I realized, oh, this is a huge opportunity. They can pay for all my licenses, and there's a direct kind of program to get me where I want to go.
So you got your Series 7 and
my
63
and working on my 63.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And so that was that was my way to get in it, and now I'm in and taking all the courses and going after all the designations. You know how many.
You see, so so you talk about like carving out your path in life.
Mm-hmm.
So it's dealing with a lot of ambiguity because we're not exactly sure at first what we want to do, what will produce most impact, and that's what writers call negative capability, and they say like having negative capability is being okay with this state of ambivalence, with this state of searching, because most people want to go for certainty right away. Oh, I want to know right away, like this way or that way, and they just give themselves two alternative A and B, and they force themselves just to choose from these artificially created alternatives, forgetting well there may be alternative C, D, E.
Yeah.
That's where we get to a non-traditional path. Because if we talk about traditional, it's like, do we go this way or that way? But there are multiple combinations. That's what statistics call permutations. Combinations, permutations, multiple ways we can combine those variables.
Yeah.
So like that process of searching, you know, like in when you talk about the bees, a lot of people have a stereotype. There is this queen bee, and she is like dictator of the bee colony, and everybody is like subservient to her. But there is a good book. It's called Bee Democracy by Thomas Seeley. He says it's not exactly like that. It's actually, yes, they do protect the queen because she produces other honeybees or worker bees.
Yeah.
But they are driven a lot of by their self-interest and searching their own way to contribute in the colony.
Okay.
So it's like the process of searching, we can see it like in the insect kingdom. So what Thomas Seeley calls it enlightened self-interest. Because we say, yeah, I have certain inclinations, passions, and skills towards certain skill sets. Let me do it because doing that will help me maximize my value to the society. And then you talk about countries like authoritarian countries like former Soviet Union, or in the Soviet Union or China, where its education system is very government planned. So the government tells you we have a shortage of XYZ occupations. We want you to go in these occupations. If you go there, you'll have a job for sure. And so you don't even have to choose your profession. They say there is a shortage, you go into that area, and then they give you a path, you graduate, and they put you in a certain plant, in a certain factory, in a certain place to work for. So you don't have to think too much because the government already decided for you, in a way. So like when you're traveling to some of these places in Southeast Asia, for example, did you, like, what kind of education system did you see there versus American education system?
Oh wow, that's a good question. Most of the time that I spent in Southeast Asia was in Cambodia and Thailand. However, I don't have a great idea on the education system. Like I told you, I used to teach English to speakers of other languages, and that was my role there. So I didn't really get a knack for what the entire education was like.
So let me rephrase this question. From your experience of teaching these students English, what kind of mentality did you see? Did you see mentality like I want to go and explore and choose the path for myself? Or did you see mentality more on the lines, well, in my country, this is the list of shortage occupations, and I must go there if I want to get government-funded education?
You know, I saw that basically you call him a chairman, in Thailand, he was in control of the school that we were at. It was called Bangwatakian School in Kanchanaburi, Thailand.
See, what does the name of this? What does that name mean?
I have no clue.
Okay.
I have no clue. But it seemed like that was his route, but he didn't put that on the children. So I remember there was this activity that we had, and we were trying to learn what the kids' families did, right, for work or anything like that. And the one child that I was working with, his family were farmers.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we see. So whatever our families do, that's what we end up, or those children at least, were thinking that they would do when they got older. So, but it didn't seem like too many, in Thailand at least, were like, oh yeah, I want to go to America and do this thing. But even though we do see, you know, a lot of children on YouTube these days, and they want to be influencers on YouTube. So
Yeah.
I also saw that there were some children that wanted to be.
Out of all the out of all the countries you went to, what
Mhm.
experience did you like best?
Yikes, that's a tough question. What
I mean, which one do you see yourself possibly living in? Like, if you could choose and say, if I could choose, if I did want to live in one of those countries, what would you choose?
Man, if I want to in one of those countries, yeah, that's a loaded question. I would probably, only because I spent so much time there, I would choose to live in Ecuador.
See, why is that?
I think because I spent, and I'm so familiar with Ecuador. I'm not sure of the healthcare system. I'm not sure of, I mean, they have a lot of like pretty good schools out there.
Hey, Yahweh, I thought your answer would be Ecuador. It's a simple reason, because it's on the equator, because I like zero degrees of latitude.
No.
So it's right between northern and southern hemisphere.
No. It was, I mean, it was a beautiful country.
Yeah.
I experienced so much there. It changed my outlook on life while I was in Ecuador. So it had a huge impact. However, like Cambodia, for instance, it was my first time traveling. I mean, other than Afghanistan, where I'm myself traveling to a country, and I just learned so much. I was there in service. I taught English to the orphanage, the children in the orphanage. I was in the village. I helped build this dormitory for teachers so they didn't have to travel so far to teach the children.
In Afghanistan?
That was in Cambodia.
Cambodia.
And it was so that was such a great experience now to you know, grow a family in a country. I probably wouldn't choose Cambodia because I don't know enough about it.
Yeah.
But Ecuador had great weather. It was, the people were great. I mean, people were very friendly. Great food.
What is like ceviche?
Ceviche is huge. Yeah, I went to Galapagos Island. That was beautiful, and then that was a kind of a last minute thing. But this, I mean, if you think about, it seemed like California was like Ecuador, because there's so many things you can do. There's so, like, there's jungle in Ecuador. There's you can go mountain climbing. There's like the mountains. There's the city, Quito. I mean, it was just so much that you can experience in Ecuador. And like I said, the people were great. The culture was beautiful.
Does it border on Costa Rica?
No.
Like how far is Costa Rica?
Well, Costa Rica is in Central America. I'm not sure how far it is though, but in Ecuador.
So like
it's in the Andes region. So
so what I want to say that about Costa Rica though, that Costa Rica is one of the pioneers, one of the champions in a natural capital. So there is a Australian lady who wrote the book 6 Capitals: How Can Accountants Save the Planet? So in that book she talks about 6 capitals. The most traditional 2 that we tend to talk about is manufactured capital and financial capital. Well, she says, well, there are 4 additional capitals that we should be paying attention to, such as social capital. Then we have environmental capital, and then we talk about governance, and so we have like social and relations capital, environmental and natural capital, governance, and intellectual property capital. So that's the additional capitals that she singles out.
Okay.
And in that book I learned that Costa Rica, when you talk about capturing the effect that the enterprises do to the environment, they are the pioneer of capturing that impact in their financial statements.
Wow.
And then other countries started catching on too, So that's the reason I was bringing up Costa Rica. So the question I want to ask about Ecuador in that regard, did you feel like as far as regard to the natural environment and really trying to capture the effect of the enterprises on depleting the natural environment, did you see any of the trends? Because there are some companies out there like Puma, and they said, yes, we agreed to disclose it in the footnotes, but they were not bold enough to actually include it in the financial statements. And few companies are, really, because if you put it in the financial statements, you'll have to show huge losses because of the damage to the environment. So you get the gist of my question. What kind, from the standpoint of safeguarding natural capital, did you see any good initiatives there in Ecuador? I'm just curious, trying to compare it to Costa Rica.
Yeah, it seemed like they were protective over the environment while I was there. But my time there, I mean, I was studying in international relations, and I was exploring. So I wasn't really focused on kind of research,
like trying to understand the ecosystems, and the effect of the enterprise and the ecosystem. It wasn't your, I mean, it wasn't your focus.
It wasn't my focus.
You were not like digging into that.
Yeah, but it did seem like they were protective over the environment. I mean, Ecuador, I think, is a pretty biodiverse country, and it did seem like they were. I mean, all of the parks they had, the bike lane. It seemed like they were environmentally focused.
Because you know the tradition in Native Americans, and they say they teach their kids how do we want to take care of our planet? How do we want to take care of our environment so that we leave it in the good shape to the 7th generation? So they teach their kids to think 7 generations ahead. Because often we have this like very short-term focus, say what's good for me or even in this generation, versus taking that generational focus. What kind of environment will my kids live or grandkids? And so on.
Yeah, I agree. That's true. Everything is what's in it for me, right? It's favorite radio station, and it's so much immediate gratification.
Yeah. So what do you see in business? You know, this short-term focus versus long-term focus. What do you how do you see businesses grappling with the short-term versus long-term focus?
Yeah, how do I see businesses grappling with that? I think it's what we incentivize that can help push us forward. So if we're focusing on first quarter, second quarter earnings instead of how will our business impact the environment, how will our business impact communities, taking a kind of broader focus, a broader approach to business.
It's like Simon Sinek calls it like infinite game. We're not just in some short-term game, it's an infinite game of getting better over time. And it's like in the personal life too. If like 4 years ago I gained a lot of weight and I got really mad about that, I wanted to change it. So it took me some time to get back in shape and maintain that. But just because I'm in a bad shape today doesn't mean I will be like really good right away. But just taking the long-term focus, let me be a little better today than I was yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean long-term focus, I think that would be the better impact, and you'll see a sustained effort. However, you do want to have short-term like goals. Like for instance, and for myself, I was always focused on the larger picture, that it was harder to attain because I'm focused on getting the big thing instead of creating these shorter goals that leads up. It's like you can't finish the burger in one bite. You got to take small bites to complete it. So I think that is also helpful, but it's to have that broader picture in mind while we're going after those shorter goals.
Yeah, and then we talk about finishing projects, and like one of the useful strategy I learned is that we can have projects that we call experiments, and we have projects that we call commitments. Because if everything is an experiment, we don't get anything done. As you were saying, we don't see the joy of accomplishing something and building that identity capital, and it gives us motivation to keep on going forward. But at the same time, if we labeled it as an experiment, we know if it doesn't work, it's okay to quit. We don't have to pursue it. But people usually don't have a good differentiation. Is this do I see it as an experiment project or as a commitment project? Because if it's a commitment project, let me challenge myself to truly bring it to completion. If it's experiment, yeah, I'm just experiment. If it doesn't work, it's okay to quit. Did you see it like useful in your life, or like what kind of strategies do you use, like as far as completing projects, versus some of them choosing not to complete some of them?
I think, I mean, a note on the experimental perspective. I think when you're really young, I think that's important to kind of take that, because you don't really know what you like when you're super young. So you want to try all these different things and figure out what your actual interests, so that you know what you can commit to later down the line. But for me, I think I always committed to whatever I was doing, because I mean, there was a time when I was self-diagnosed as a perfectionist, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure everything was perfect. I wanted to make sure everything was seen through, but that could also keep you from growing, because you don't want to mess this thing up. You have a fear. I mean, I had a fear of failure.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, how do I make sure this piece, and that could stagnate you.
Yeah.
So I think it's finding what the interest is, which that comes from experimentation, and then when you have like that one thing that you want to do, that one project that you want to complete, then just commit to it until it's done, and don't quit because you want to see it.
Yeah, it's like that's a quote by Robert Broyle, that people are not distracted from their goals. People don't achieve their goals not because they are difficult or impossible to achieve, but because they get distracted by the smaller, lower hanging fruit.
Okay.
And if we do commit to something, like the entire universe conspires to help us.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you know the saying, when a student is ready, teacher appears.
Yes.
So it's like when we are ready and we are focused, all of a sudden we see this opportunity, this person could help us. Then we see like the universe conspiring to help us.
Yeah, I'm sure that you're familiar with the finance industry and how many people don't make it, and even in sales, right?
Yeah.
And often, I mean, I talk to a lot of the top guys, and these people are saying, yeah, I just basically stood the test of time. I just didn't give up. I just wanted it more. I just saw it through. And a lot of people, they quit within the first 6 months to a year, and they don't see it through. Sometimes, I mean, they have families to look after and other kind of complications, but that is a huge difference that I see. They just stayed in the industry. They just stayed in the business.
Yeah, I think in Navy SEAL, they have the 5%, 95% rule. That 95% are quitters and 5% make it. In the Marines, is there like similar rule that 5% persevere and stick it out, and 95% quit?
You know, I didn't see so many people quit in the Marine Corps. I mean,
because they already pre-qualified.
You are pre-qualified, but I think in the Navy SEALs you have to have certain markers. And the Marine Corps, you might get held back, so they might in recruit training they might. So you start out with this platoon, and then you end up dropping out of that platoon and waiting for the next one.
I see.
But it could be a number of reasons, because they weren't fit at the time to go on to the next progression in recruit training, or maybe they had a behavioral problem, maybe they had an injury that there's a lot of different.
So we talk about statistics, this bell-shaped curve, standard distribution. So we say like roughly 70% are in the middle. That's a kind of like average level, and then we have 15% like top performers and like 15% laggards.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody wants to be like in the top of their field, like super motivated to be on the top of their field,
mm-hmm.
what do you think it takes for somebody to like achieve that level to be the top of their field?
Yeah. What I see is you have to be obsessed. I think most people who are at the top are obsessed with what they do. So, like I said, I mentioned before, they get lost in their work. They set short-term goals.
That flow state. They acquire the flow state, because if you're a runner or a musician, you get in the flow state,
mm-hmm.
where distractions don't matter. You really have the deliberate practice, and I mean, you just forget about everything else that's going on.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a part of it, and I mean, simple things like not allowing yourself to be distracted. The mindset around obstacles or perceived obstacles.
Yeah.
They kind of find ways to get around them. They see them as opportunities to grow. But I think being obsessed about it is a huge factor.
Yeah, so when you work in the finance field and you're advising people on their financial plans, then usually tax considerations are a part of that.
Absolutely.
So when you work with different tax people, what would you say differentiates like a really good top-notch tax person versus mediocre on not so good?
Oh wow. I guess how involved they want to be in the process. So I met with, maybe they don't have good people skills. They are really interested in their clients and how they can help them.
Yeah.
Sometimes people try to take a hands-off approach and kind of outsource it to someone else, but I see that, tax advisors or probably people like yourself, meeting with them, kind of when you first meet with someone who you can send referrals to, you want to make sure like how long they're going to stay in the business, how long, what is their experience like with their other clients, how many clients do they have, what's their outlook on life. Like it's really a relationship that you're establishing. So if you don't have a great relationship with them, the likelihood of them being in a good relationship with my clients won't be likely, right?
Yeah, it's like one guy told me many years ago. He said, "Vasil, in business, it's about three things. It's about being likable, about being trustworthy,
mm-hmm.
and competent."
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's essentially what you were referring to.
Yeah, the competence is I think something I didn't mention, but that's super important. You don't want to put your clients in a position where they can be having faulty.
You want to be a hero for the client, and you can be a hero if you send them to a wrong guy. That tarnishes your reputation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you send it to the right person, they're super happy. You're a hero for the client, because not only do you do your field, you also have a good, broad enough referral network to make sure your clients are fully taken care of.
Exactly, and that's a part of my process. We get to a point where, okay, do you have an accountant? And if not, then I see there's so many different areas of one's life where, taxes come into play, especially, my market business owners and real estate professionals.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a litany of tax guidance that they need.
That's right.
Yeah.
And from the perspective of entrepreneurship lessons that you learned in different countries, what kind of entrepreneurship lessons you learned in different countries that you lived in?
Well,
maybe you're familiar with the book. There is a book. It's called Lessons from the Poor,
No, I haven't seen that.
and it talks about micro entrepreneurship in very like small villages in different impoverished places around the world.
Mhm.
And it's basically, look, we can learn a lot of resilience, how amidst adversity and really hard circumstances, these people still make it work. Going back to your point about not quitting, still looking for the opportunities out there.
Mhm.
What kind of inspiring entrepreneurial stories you saw in the countries where you lived?
You know, at the time, I wasn't entrepreneurial when I was in these countries. However, it seems like, I mean, one person I can think of off the top of my head in Cambodia, it seemed like he was just always involved in the community. I think having a focus on how you can be of value in the community is huge. And he was just seen as this leader. He was seen as the go-to person for all the things. Another one, not only the village, but even the orphanage in Cambodia. He was like the father of the orphanage, and he took care of. He was a doctor. He was a farmer, just taking care of all these, finding where the problem lies, and developing skills in that area so you can be service to your community.
Yeah, so it's like the giver's gain.
Yes.
It's one of the values in BNI.
Yeah.
Or that do-gooder, but Bob Berg do-gooder. If we do good in the community, I mean, eventually we provide value. We can build those networks and like have good clients too.
Absolutely.
There was I am like one of the services we offer is color accounting, and it's like
what is it?
Color accounting.
Okay.
It's innovative method of teaching accounting to the business owners. Instead of using left for debit and right for credit, we use color, green for debit and orange for credit.
Oh, gotcha.
So it makes it much more intuitive for the business owners to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the notions of that is a matter of perspective. Do you talk from the individual perspective or from the company perspective? It's very important. Like, is it how do I account from my individual perspective or from the company perspective? It's called entity theory in accounting. So it's called pineapple. So there are different like code words that the group learns to make it fun. So like when we say pineapple in color accounting, it means you may be thinking from a different angle. You may be thinking from an individual angle. Think about that from the company angle. Okay. So anyway, this guy Peter Frampton, who is one of the founders of the idea, along with another guy, Mark Robilliard. So Peter Frampton went to Eswatini in Africa to teach color accounting in some of these villages to boost micro entrepreneurship. So he's coaching one of these ladies, and they get to the point to talk about entity theory and about pineapple, and he's like, I'm not sure if I should tell her that. I'm not sure if that's gonna be valuable. We should just skip it over. But he goes, you know what? It's a part of the workshop. I go ahead and tell her. So he teaches entity theory and the importance of perspective, and then she looks at him. You just changed my life. And he goes, why is she being so dramatic? just tell me something. She's like, no, you don't understand. In this small village, people think I am rich because I have a business. So they come to me and say, give me money for this and that, and I am like pestered by all these requests. I cannot focus on my business. You just gave me an answer. When they come to me and say, I don't have money as an individual, that's business's money.
There we go. Perspective, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. So as far like, what would you tell our viewers if they especially the ones that not sure if they to the younger ones who may not be sure what direction they want to take, or even older ones who think about their career change and figuring out the path for themselves, what would you tell them?
I'd say in the person's life, you always have a confidant. You always have someone that you go to for advice. Find who that person is. seek their advice, look for a business coach, seek their advice, and look at what you're generally interested in. Like you mentioned before, where your skills lie, where your strengths are, and find a way to combine all those things and set a target. Find what you actually want to do in life and go after that.
Would you say networking groups such as BNI are helpful from the mentorship perspective and
I think
things like that?
BNI is great, but even networking in your own
Your
cities,
community,
your own cities, networking,
yeah.
LinkedIn is a great source. Find the people in the industry where you want to work in and ask them to go out for a cup of coffee, buy them lunch, and ask them for advice on how to get started. I think that's a great way to introduce yourself to that industry that you want to get started in.
Yeah, what would you say about like the value of all of these diverse experiences that you had in the Marines and different countries?
Mm-hmm.
How did it make you a better consultant when you're serving your client base now?
Yeah, I think diversity can give you a broader perspective, right? You go in, if one track minded, you have a degree in finance, your parents were in finance, you read all the Wall Street journals, right?
Yeah.
Articles, and it's hard to pull from any other experience than those. Now, if you have traveled a bit, if you have other industry experience, outside industry experience, then that can help you in guiding your clients. Maybe they don't have a finance background. How would you talk to someone who knows nothing about finance?
Right.
And that helps, knowing, because I have this multicultural view on life, I can pull from, okay, where is this person from? It's from Ecuador. Okay, I know their culture. I know how to kind of shape the process in a way that kind
You
of
know how to
benefit
step.
them.
You know how to step in their shoes.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
Come
if
from
you
a place of empathy.
If you step in their shoes, you can advise them on what's in their best interests. Not in what you want to know, what you think could be right, but what would be best specifically for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very valuable to think of all the different ways how our experiences shape us, and we don't have to go like a straight line. I mean, we talk about progress. A lot of people think it should be like a straight line up, but if they have some deviations from that and slumps, it's like usually some slumps and then up again. So it's not, progress is not a straight line. It's like can be curvy, meandering journey, as long as ultimately the trajectory is trending up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember seeing this illustration of where you are in success, and then what most people think is a beeline straight to success, but what it actually is, and then there's a line all over the place.
Yeah.
So, and then you end up there. It's like it takes you throughout this journey of discovery, and it can lead you here, it can lead you there. But like you said, as long as the trend is up, that's what that's what you want.
Yeah, so I think if I could summarize it, I would tell our viewers being fascinated by life, exploring new things and angles. Like for example, like Honeybee Democracy by Thomas Seeley. I didn't know much about those concepts. I had some basic knowledge about the bees from my uncle. My great uncle was a beekeeper, so on. But I didn't really think about that from the standpoint of what they teach us socially about our behavior and things like that. And then you get into some subject and you just deepen that curiosity and fascination with life. If you're curious, you're fascinated, you'll see different angles, you'll see better opportunities to advise your clients, create better tax strategies or financial strategies for them. so that's my encouragement. Be curious and fascinated with life. Talk with different people, because we can learn a lot from different people that have different background from us.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's that learning process that helps us better and more connected to the community. So I appreciate this opportunity to connect with our viewers, and thank you, Yahweh, for sharing your experience with us. And yeah, let's keep on exploring and be curious about life, and getting to the point and living the game. Celebrate our success so that it propels our path forward. So greetings from the Bidens. Subscribes to the channel for future podcasts. You can type in the comments what subjects or topics would be valuable and interesting to you, because we want to make it interesting, we want to make it engaging, because this YouTube channel is simply another way to be connected to the community. So thanks guys, and cool bees.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah.